Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live on news up here at Desawe Kanda, also live on 3FM 92.7 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're live as well on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Coming up this evening, Parliament to head back to the Supreme Court for clarification on the ruling to have it expunge the name of James Jachekwason from its records. The May 17th ruling has had members of Parliament and the Speaker scratching their heads as to what to do with regards to this particular directive from the Supreme Court. Stay with us. We have some reactions from Parliament on this particular one. Very, very interesting times ahead. Take a look.
For you to maybe take the decision as to whether we should go back for clarification, and then when the Supreme Court decides that we have not fully complied, then it's the House.
We'll give you details of what happened in Parliament today. In fact, Supreme Court to investigate conduct of a judge who presided over by a case involving the estate of a deceased pastor with concerns of corruption and other related matters being probed. In fact, we're getting to the details plus some legal opinion shortly on this, because this case has taken a very, very interesting turn after all that has happened over the last 8 months. I've been following this particular case, but the telco officials are to report to the premises of Parliament to reconnect blocked SIM of the Speaker. Alban Sumana for Barman, as a communications minister, Eslo Usekofo urges Ghanaians struggling with acquiring their Ghana cards to report to the NCA for support. We have details of that and the talk of a lifeline for those who have had their SIMs blocked. We'll give you details of that, plus the latest in business, sports, and entertainment coming over the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's get straight into it now. I am Alfred Ocansey. Welcome. Let's get into the details now. Straight from Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagwin, says the House as a whole will have to decide on how to carry out the order of the Supreme Court regarding the expunging of the name of James Jachekwason from the records of Parliament. He says they may have to go back to the Supreme Court for clarification or decide what to do. In fact, on June 6th, when Parliament resumed work, the Speaker, Alban Bagwin, indicated that the order from the Supreme Court to Parliament to expunge the name of James Jachekwason from its records was novel and not adequately provided for in the standing orders. On Thursday, the MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, wanted more understanding of this particular directive from the Supreme Court. Member of Parliament for Tamale South, Haruna Idrisu, said the House needs to situate the ruling of the Supreme Court within the spirit and letter of the Constitution. He wondered how only the name of the Member of Parliament could be expunged as the Supreme Court had directed.
How do we expunge the record? It is not just the name. It is not just the name. And he has gone through Hansard, and Hansard has captured. And we have so even when you go through votes and proceedings, what is the essence of it? It is to establish that the veracity of the happenings in Parliament, one, had the participation of all members who were present, and if anybody made a contribution, Hansard will capture you appropriately. So, I should be understanding Mr. Speaker to saying that it's a novelty because this is the first time you are having such consequential direction. That's not to say that the Supreme Court have no on legislation. There is a number of rulings that we are guided with. But specific to an individual, how to get his name and all his record expunged is what I think that Parliament must be guided. And probably, Mr. Speaker, as you consider the new standing orders, to contemplate how to deal with such matters. I thank you.
Well, that's Haruna Idrisu there, MP for Boko Central, Mama Yaga, who is also a private legal practitioner, says the Supreme Court ruling is clear as it only is asking for the name of Judge Ocansey to be expunged from its records. So we're going to take a listen to that aspect. In fact, his argument as well, and for him, why the Supreme Court should also bring in some further and better particulars.
The Supreme Court is asking for the name of a particular person to be expunged from the records as a member of Parliament. It is not my understanding that everything else that he has participated in doing in this house should be null and void, or that he has never been in this house. If you read the wording, it just says expunge his name from the records as a member of Parliament. If you recall, Mr. Speaker, several provisions state that the fact that the legality of a member is questioned does not nullify what has happened in this house with the presence of that member. And so far as I understand the decision of the Supreme Court, we are to move forward, not to move back.
Well, that's Mahama Yariga there, also sharing his thoughts on what happened today. There's clearly the reasoning behind the Speaker's position that there has to be some further and better particulars from the Supreme Court on this matter. This is what the Speaker said. In fact, the order is predicated on a number of rulings, adding there is a need for clarification from the Supreme Court on how it expects Parliament to expunge the name of James Ocansey from its records.
Before the order came, that was to expunge. In fact, it did not say the Speaker should expunge. And it did not say any member of Parliament should expunge. And it did not also say the clerk should expunge. It says the institution called Parliament. That's straight from the Supreme Court. So that institution must carry out the order. The only way the institution can carry out the order is for the institution to reason together. And that is only done in the setting where the opportunity is given to members to think through it. And so members will now have to come out with how this is to be carried out. Is it by the table office, which they just did and it has led to this objection, or is by the Speaker or the clerk, or all of us? The Speaker should give the directive. I don't want to assume powers that are not clearly spelled out in any law. I will not dictate. No, it is unclear. It's not the Speaker who dictates. So I did indicate, and I mentioned to some members of the court, the Supreme Court, that there is a need for clarification, because expunge doesn't mean delete. And so we are trying to initiate the process for you to maybe take the decision as to whether we should go back for clarification, or you will, by your decision, empower the Speaker or the clerk to act. Okay. And then when the Supreme Court decides that we have not fully complied, then it's the House.
Well, so that's the Speaker of Parliament there, Alban Bagman, on this. There's clearly some confusion as to how Parliament would have to carry out this directive from the Supreme Court to expunge the name of James Ocansey from its records. Bear in mind, James Ocansey is contesting the by-election in the Asin North constituency on the ticket of the NDC, as has over the period been communicated. But let's go on to the telephone now. And Dr. Rashid Rahman is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Dr. Rashid Rahman, thank you so much for your time on Hot Edition. This is a procedure, or the procedures in Parliament. You are not alien to. But now there is the confusion of whether expunging James Atikwe's name means delete, because the speaker says expunge doesn't necessarily mean delete. Would you support the call to have them go back to the Supreme Court for further and better particulars on this?
Yes, indeed, Alfred. I think what my reading, if I hear the pronouncements of the Right Honourable Speaker and most of the members of Parliament who have spoken on this, I get a sense that particularly for the Right Honourable Speaker to keep saying this is a novelty, and yesterday I heard him say, I repeat, they have ordered Parliament. It seems to suggest that there is a feeling that the Supreme Court or the judiciary, for that matter, is venturing into the space of Parliament. And for me, I think that is the part that is a bit worrying when we look at this matter, even if the procedures are not clear and we don't know how to deal with this. In terms of the Alfred, the meaning of expunge, I will put the emphasis on the records. If you read, the instruction of the Supreme Court, they expunge the name of the honourable member from the records of Parliament. This is very weighty, because like many are saying, are we going to go back and undo everything that the honourable member participated in, including the first act of this 8th Parliament? That was the election of the Right Honourable Speaker and so on. So certainly, I think I join those who say, let's go back to the Supreme Court. But again, I think even if we go back to the Supreme Court, I think going forward, there is a need for some conversation between the judiciary and Parliament, because we don't want to get to a situation where there is tension between the legislature and the judiciary. There is a feeling that, the judiciary is trying to control Parliament. Particularly, Alfred, if you remember the case of the First Deputy Speaker and the issues surrounding whether, he can vote or not, and the intervention of the Supreme Court and so on. I think many didn't take it too lightly, particularly because of the fact that, the sovereignty and lawmaking and so on, I think resides on the people that we elect to go and represent us. They are the symbol, the institution. That institution is a symbol of our democracy. Nobody has elected anybody to go to the judiciary. Nobody elected most of those who sit as ministers. But everybody who sits in the House is elected, and they are the symbol and, in fact, the custodians of our democratic kind of dispensation.
I see. Very important points that you touch on. But then that bit about the judiciary's perceived interference or direction to Parliament. If you look at the wording of the Supreme Court's ruling, actually directing Parliament to expunge the name of the member of Parliament for Sin North, the former member of Parliament for Sin North from its records, you wouldn't fault anybody who raises that angle that the Supreme Court is interfering or actually telling Parliament what to do, which raises fundamental questions about the separation of powers and the fact that the judiciary cannot tell Parliament what to do.
Indeed. And as the former minority leader said yesterday, the judiciary exists not to tell Parliament what to do, but just simply to interpret the laws that Parliament passes. So I think, like I said, there's a need for some serious conversation. I know that separation doesn't simply mean that the branches of government don't have to work together. There needs to be some interdependence, because the three working together I think can advance the cause of development in this country. But we don't want a situation where those that we did not elect are sitting somewhere and telling those we elected to represent us the way to do their work. So I think there's a need for some conversation, and there's a need for some serious dialogue between the perhaps maybe the Right Honourable Speaker and the new Chief Justice of our Republic.
Okay, and before I let you go, I mean, since you have extensive knowledge about how other parliaments function and what has happened there, this is novel according to the Speaker of Parliament in our Parliament work. But is there any example in other countries that we may make reference to that administratively? How can Parliament carry out this directive?
I have not come across any, and in fact, I have been to and I deal with all these parliaments on the continent and beyond. Perhaps maybe let's take a step back and then ask ourselves what is causing all this. I mean, is this unreasonable provision in our constitution about dual citizenship? That really does not make sense. On the one hand, we want the diaspora, we want them economically, we want them to make contributions to the growth of our economy. And then on the other hand, we tell them, keep a distance, we don't want to engage in our politics and so on. Many countries, have gone beyond this. This is an archaic kind of provision. In Canada, for instance, granted, maybe Canada is not, at the same level of development as our republic. But I have had friends who were from Uganda and so on, whole Ugandan citizenship, whole British citizenship. Even the former minority leader in the House of Commons in Canada just 2 years ago was both American and Canadian. So I think there's a need for some serious conversation about this whole allegiance issue. And most countries don't have that. So I don't think, and even if they do, maybe they are better organized than we are. Because like I was telling you on your show the other day, I think our parties have to learn some serious lessons. If that's what the law says, let's make sure that people prove before the first act that they have all the things that show that they have done the needful in order to qualify to contest. Because Sakande was an example, and I thought that they would have, the parties would have learned their lessons, but it looks as if not.
Dr. Rashid Rahman, I thank you so much. We'll see, because they're going to refer back to the Supreme Court for clarity. We'll see how things will play out. But thank you so much for your thoughts.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, sharing his thoughts here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. And we have had about 9 million SIM cards blocked between May 31, that's the expiration date for the SIM card registration exercise, which was extended till date. Now, the Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Eslo Wusu Ekofo, has urged persons who genuinely have problems with acquiring their Ghana cards to enable them re-register their SIMs to contact the National Communications Authority with evidence of their application. According to her, a verified evidence will exempt the SIMs from being blocked. She made this known when she appeared before Parliament to brief the House on the SIM card registration exercise and the SIMs that have been blocked over the last couple of weeks.
But as I indicated, some people genuinely had Ghana cards and had refused to register, like Honorable Sam George. And what can you do about that person? You can't do anything about that person. The National Communications Authority has offices in all regions of this country. What we as members of Parliament can do to help our constituents is to assist them to apply for the Ghana card. And all the NCA requires at this stage is evidence of having made an effort to apply for the Ghana card and not having received it. That's all the NTA requires at this stage. We cannot have a blanket exemption because we all know that some fraudsters are hiding behind the anonymity of this process to defraud others. And so if we give a blanket exemption, we're just allowing them to continue perpetrating their fraudulent activities on all individuals. So what the NTA requires at this stage is for individuals to apply for the card. You may not have received it. Apply for it. Send them evidence of your application for it. And your card will be exempted from the exercise. And, Mr. Speaker,
well, so that's Esla Oseko there. Now, Member of Parliament for that's Haruna Idrisu, who spoke earlier on a number of issues, a Member of Parliament for the Tamale South constituency, also waded into this. He says that the National Education Authority and the National Communications Authority should collaborate to stop the numerous blockages of persons who have genuine challenges with getting their Ghana card.
There are too many silos of data in Ghana. That is my view. Why are you taking biometric of a person for a SIM card, biometric for a national ID card, biometric for a national health insurance, biometric for SNP? What this country needs is harmonized, and the Electoral Commission of Ghana is synchronization and harmonization of data. So the problem, as I listen to the Honorable Sam George, is that you don't even have a data sharing infrastructure nor a data sharing platform. So when you so register your SIM, how do you get it verified on a National Identification Authority platform when you don't have an infrastructure for data sharing? For us as a country, the theft war must cease. As to who is in charge, who is in control, SIM is your theft, but identification is his theft. How do we reconcile it for the benefit of the Ghanaian? You must be seen working with them. So it is not her problem. It is Ministry of Finance is not giving enough money to National Identification Authority. Even what they came and promised here, they haven't on it.
Also, Haruna Idrisu, the Tamale South Member of Parliament, giving details of his position on this particular issue as well, raising questions and pointing fingers at the Finance Ministry for also contributing to the problem of the National Education Authority not being able to work within time to give persons who needed the Ghana card to go through the SIM registration exercise the opportunity to do so, which has led to some of the numbers being blocked through no fault of the owners of the SIM cards. Well, Member of Parliament for the Ningo Pram constituency, Sam George, says the inconsistency in the SIM card registration exercise is a threat to national security.
Ghana is not Accra, but even in Accra, if you ask anybody to come from Adan all the way to a premium center in Accra on the Liberation Avenue, Calbank, to come and transport themselves and come and pay premium 280 Ghana cedis before they get a card they are entitled to for free, how do you expect them to register? You may take this as a joke, but anybody coming from the Afram Plains, Don Kokrom, would have to go all the way to Koforidua. Let us be clear that the NCA, acting on the directives of the Minister for Communications and working through the MNOs, has created what poses the biggest national security threat to our country today. With what they have done, which is, for want of a better phrase, I would not want to call it reckless, but an indiscriminate blocking of SIM cards of Ghanaians who ought to have access to their SIM cards for the conduct of business and sustenance of livelihood. Mr. Speaker, I call upon this House to impress on the Minister for Communications to go back to the drawing board and engage the NIA and do a proper process. But Mr. Speaker, this country can only seek solace in the fact that the next NDC administration in 2025 will do a proper SIM registration.
That's Sam George, is a Member of Parliament for the Ningo Pram constituency. Now, to the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, a 5-member panel of the Apex Court on Tuesday said the antecedents of the case indeed involving the estate of a deceased pastor to the Chief Justice to investigate the conduct of the judge and court registrar involved in the said matter. So, according to this 5-member panel of the Apex Court, they say that the antecedents of this particular case cast a slur on the integrity of the judicial system. The presiding judge, Justice Jones Doche, through the referral, urged the Chief Justice to investigate Justice Emmanuel Ankama, who presided over the case at the High Court in Tema in 2022, but is now a Justice of the Court of Appeal, and the then Registrar of the High Court in Tema, Sebastian Agbo. Quote, "In our collective wisdom, we deem it appropriate to refer this case to the Chief Justice to cause further investigations into the conduct of the learned trial judge and Sebastian Agbo, the then Registrar of the High Court in Tema, under whose tenure this sordid affairs happened. This should cover all officers who played any role in this shameful species of conduct," unquote. The other justices on the panel were Avril Lovelace Johnson, Isifu Imoro, Tanko Amadou, Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, and Emmanuel Yoni Kolendi. And this is interesting because the High Court of the land made the highest court of the land made the referral to the Chief Justice after it granted a certiorari application quashing the decision of Justice Ankama, which struck out a caveat challenging the letters of administration for the sharing of the properties in the estate of the late Reverend Emmanuel Dogbaji. A caveat is a document that is filed in court to prevent the proposed executors or administrators of a deceased person's estate from getting permission to administer the estate's assets. Now, the decision was indeed, according to Justice Jones Doche, who retires today, one that has to be rectified to ensure that, in his view, this disgraceful the decision by the judge should not hold. Now, I've been joined on the telephone by a private legal practitioner, constitutional lawyer for that matter, who has a lot up his sleeves in terms of his impact in the legal system in this country. Lawyer Martin Pebo, I thank you so much for your time here on Hot Edition, and I know that this is a case that you also watched and followed as it unfolded. Now, this directive by the 5-member panel to have the Chief Justice investigate the judges who sat on this case and ruled on this matter clearly is interesting, to say the least, is it not?
Yes, yes, because you've hit the nail on the head, because this kind of referrals don't happen that often. So for the court to unanimously agree on such an order, and it tells you the court wants to do something about the situation. Yes, so it's okay that the referral is being made, and it's going to be an investigation. So thankfully, Justice Ankama will get his lawyers, and then he will have his day before the committee. Yes.
And in fact, if you look at the wording of the 5-member panel who sat on this, which the presiding judge, Justice Don Doche, actually described the said ruling as a slur on the integrity of the judicial system. That's strong.
It's not surprising, because don't forget, in our society, the society has been baying for the blood of anybody who is seen to be involved, even to the least extent, in any malfeasance. Even sometimes just based on suspicions alone, you see citizens calling for the blood of that person. So it fits in the context. It's just like, in our history, this is not the first time you see citizens calling for remedies, calling for sanctions against public officers and all that. I remember even the 79 coup, university students came out and were supporting JJ, let the blood flow, let the blood flow. So what I see is that because citizens have become very discerning and are getting impatient and are constantly attacking the judicial system, when the court also sees something that will further erode the confidence citizens have in the court, then the court wants to be seen proactively dealing with the issue. You say, yes. So that's the thing, because it is just like the way through social media commentary and the rest, people are referring to the Supreme Court as unanimous SC and the rest. And you remember last week, we even commenting where I said, Justice Doche said that when citizens won a case, then that one, he was expecting that they wouldn't say unanimous FC in a derogatory manner. So quite clearly, in one simple word, the court wants to be proactive so that the attacks on the judicial system, the attacks on the justice system, the name calling, and the loss of confidence in all this will stop. Because don't forget, there's even a larger objective for the court to be interested in solving this. Because you see, when citizens lose confidence in the justice system, hey, it's not a good thing, because then citizens will want to take the law into their own hands, citizens will want to settle their own issues, and sometimes it leads to violence and all that. So the bigger picture is the attempt by the court to, not further allow any erosion of the confidence of the citizens in the justice system.
So in a situation like this, just for the benefit of the public, what could be the possible process in reviewing a case like this? If the Chief Justice obviously takes interest in this direction by the 5-member panel on this case?
Yes, so it means that he will constitute a committee. So it's interesting. It means that this is an administrative committee. So it's separate and different from Article 146. You see, the Article 146 is the one when you want to have a judge removed. But that's not what they are doing here. Because, you see, sometimes you see the figures written, but we don't know how they came about. So this is an investigation into that particular, what do you call it, that state of affairs, how the properties were lowly valued. So I can imagine that the Chief Justice will constitute a committee administratively, and they will look into it. So by all means, there will be some justices of the Supreme Court, justices of the Court of Appeal, High Court, broad-based committee to be able to go into it. Yes, that's the thing. Yeah.
Lawyer, I appreciate your time and, as always, your contribution to deepening your understanding of how the law works. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Lawyer Martin Pebo joining us there as a constitutional lawyer, sharing his thoughts on this. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It's some 25 minutes to above the hour, 6 p.m. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Now, government experts goes after the establishment for the manner in which the former Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, is being handled. After writing a detailed report on Galamsey, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng was arrested by the Office of Special Prosecutor and put under investigation following an invitation to him by the office weeks ago. The last 24 hours have been all about Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng after he detailed a blow-by-blow account of his arrest and encounter with the Special Prosecutor with me on Ghana Tonight yesterday. He was subsequently granted a 2 million cedi bail. Professor Bafo Ajimendia is, however, not happy but how there seems to be some unseen hands targeted the former minister and the former chair of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. He's asking that the right things and transparency be employed in this process.
I think this news has come as a big surprise to many of us, especially those of us who know Professor Boateng personally, as I do. He's a man of high integrity. He's a man who is totally committed to his country, to the well-being of his country. And I believe that when he's entrusted with any responsibility, he will do it to the best of his abilities. Regarding this specific case, we know he was chairing the Interministerial Committee to fight Galamsey, which is a big problem for the country. And from what we know, he was tasked by his boss at the time, and his boss wasn't directly the president, but the chief of staff, to kind of report on the work that he's been entrusted to do on that committee, and also to suggest ways to strengthen the fight against Galamsey. So the man did it as honestly as he could, and in the process mentioned some officials, both in the government and in the political party, who are complicit. Why hasn't the Office of Special Prosecutor invited those who are allegedly complicit in this criminal act of Galamsey, but rather the one who was asked to report? See, when you look at the whole case, it's very easy for anyone to say, look, it's not just a fight back, but it's a victimization. That's how it looks. Because, as I said earlier, as you know from Boateng, he's not a guy who will, get himself involved in this kind of thing. But you also have to say that if it's a matter of discretion or some misjudgment as a minister or as a chairman on these matters, those things, as a human being, you are heading a group, certainly there can be occasions of misjudgment and all.
So that's Professor Bafo Ajimendria there also sharing his thoughts. And in fact, he raises fundamental questions about what he described as some unseen hands targeting Professor Frimpong Boateng. And in fact, Professor Frimpong Boateng, in that exclusive interview with me on Ghana Tonight last night, also admitted that he feels targeted and how things are playing out. One person who did not mince words about the conduct of the Office of Special Prosecutor in a statement that he put out on his Facebook page is Professor Ransford Jampo, a professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Legon. He's joining me on the telephone. Professor Jampo, always a pleasure talking to you. Now, what aspect of the conduct of the OSP are you not happy about?
The disrespectful conduct and the bits about focusing on the substantive work to do, but deciding to go on a tangent of harassing somebody who is an accomplished heart surgeon, an eminent statesman, and clearly a clean person in Ghana. I find it annoying. I find it unacceptable, and I find this particular conduct of the OSP as rushing to cut the eyes of his appointing authorities. And I've counseled him that if he rushes, you see, when we were in secondary school, there was this expression, "Someone rush, I'll be king." Okay, so he should tone down on his youthful exuberance and to ensure that he focuses on the real work that is there to be done. We must know, Ghanaians do not know, but I was part of the team of researchers whose research output culminated in the production of a document called Democracy Consolidation Strategy Paper. In that document, it was the first document that called for constitution review. And in that document, we said that even though the 1992 constitution has served us well, it nevertheless contained provisions that hindered the maturation of our democratization process, and so it should be reviewed. Now, we identify key specific provisions of the Constitution, which in our view ought to be reviewed. One of the provisions was one of the proposals we made in reviewing the Constitution was the proposal to separate the Attorney General's office from the Ministry of Justice, and to create another office called the Office of an Independent Public Prosecutor. Okay, separation of the AG's office from the Ministry of Justice and setting up an independent public prosecutor. Now, I believe that President Akufo-Addo, when he came to office, he had it. I mean, several times that we held our forum when I was coordinating the Ghana Podcast Party program, he himself was there, his representatives were there. So he heard some of these proposals that we're making. And I'm sure that he knew that the route that we are proposing, if he wanted to go that route of creating an independent public prosecutor's office, then it was going to mean an amendment of the 1990 Constitution. And this particular proposal was going to require that there is going to be a referendum and all that. So, he resorted to the line of least resistance by creating the office of the special prosecutor. It's important for us to make the point that the office of the special prosecutor works in the shadow of the very partisan attorney general. And so the attorney general is able to direct or can intervene in any matter that the special prosecutor may be investigating. And so the point must be made for all Ghanaians to know that the office of the special prosecutor is not an independent office at all. And so the office can be manipulated, it can be controlled, it can be dictated to by politicians. Now, put that aside. The office is at liberty to call anybody.
Hello, Prof.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. The office is at liberty to call anybody it deems fit to come and answer questions related to corruption. Frimpong Boateng had done a report which he did not even leak to the public. We are told that he sent that report to the presidency. Now, someone leaked that report to the press for whatever reason, we don't know. And I am saying that it is within the right of the special prosecutor to call Frimpong Boateng and to say that, look, we have seen certain things in your report, and we want you to help us in addressing some of the concerns or some of the key issues. We want you to speak to some of the issues in your report. It is within the legitimate right of the office of the special prosecutor. But this thing can be done only when you invite the person. Now, there's a difference between inviting such a person and telling us that you've arrested that person. The arrest comes in when you have invited the person that please come and speak to this particular friend, and then the person didn't come. Then you can say that, well, in that case, I am arresting you. Then when there is an arrest, then you have to charge the person after some preliminary investigations have been done. Then when you have charged the person following the arrest, then you may say that the person will have to be bailed. That is how things are done. I am not a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer, but I know that this is how things are done. You would first have to invite the person, okay? Such a person of eminent persona. You just invite him. The person comes. If he doesn't come and you want to arrest him, so be it. Then the arrest him rule function kicks in. When the person comes and you arrest him, then you charge him. Then when you charge him, then to be bailed, then someone will have to come and bail him. You have not done all these things. You rushed into arresting the person. Now, after arresting the person, they ask you, what was the charge? Yesterday, when you, Alfred Ocansey, you were interviewing the man, I was watching. I'm far away from Accra, but I was watching. And I heard him saying that they didn't charge me. And so if they didn't charge, then what was the essence of the arrest? Wasn't it just to disrespect him? Wasn't it just to harass him? I am telling the special prosecutor that he should focus on his work. He cannot help in fighting corruption. He cannot fight Galamsey by exposing and harassing. So he cannot fight Galamsey by harassing those who seek to expose it. Because what he has done, next time, if somebody has something to say in exposing the canker, then the person may think twice. And look at even Frimpong Boateng, an accomplished personality in Ghana like that. Look at how he's being handled. To the point that we couldn't say that he should be granted self-bail and that we need to say people should bail him to a tune of 2 million. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm saying that the young man special prosecutor is Russian. And this is not how our democracy is evolving. We want to do things right. We want to do things according to due processes. But in doing this, we must also have reference, or we should also be tolerant of our own culture and our values. No nation develops without its cultural values. One of our cultural values is civility and respect and courtesy. And so, arresting such a man is absolutely a no-no. It is a mere display of youthful exuberance. It's a mere display of naked power. It is an unnecessary harassment that will rather stall our efforts to fight the menace of Galamsey.
Well said. Professor Ransford Jampo, I thank you so much for your time. Wish you well.
It is my pleasure.
Professor Ransford Jampo is a professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Legon. And it's 30 minutes to the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. And guess who is here for business?
Why are you shouting? Why are you shouting?
That's how I introduce you all the time.
Relax.
Today there's extra...
Extra what?
Hey, Wale. Beside. A happy birthday to
Hi,
you.
Alfred. Thank you so much.
It's a birthday business edition.
I'm telling you.
Too much. Yeah, but have you quantified the cost of the cakes and the items you received and juxtapose it with the economic condition as against the IMF bailout?
I'm waiting for your momo to add.
And the gift tax you pay.
I knew you were going to talk about tax.
Because right now we need all the money.
And when you finish, come be the auditor for the GRA.
All the cakes I understand is about 1,500 cedis.
Is it the one from you?
No.
So which one? No. Who brought that?
Haven't you received the?
Which one?
Check your phone.
Right now.
Yeah. Let's get it to work.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the business segments here on Hot Edition with me, Nana Ekia Mensah Brampa. And coming up this evening, we're looking at the Ghana Hotels Association, who are really speaking when it comes to the issue of tariffs, specifically water tariffs. The hotel rates are likely to increase in coming days, and that's a warning from the Ghana Hotels Association following a notice from the Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission, the PURC, on increase in water tariffs by 150%, according to President of the Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike. This increase will affect the cost of operations of members.
We are a business entity. We will have to survive. We will have to pay bills. We will have to pay taxes. We will have to pay salaries. We will have to buy the things we need to do the business. Okay? And it's just a simple model. When one of the variables changes, it affects the outcome. That's the zone we are entering now. So hotels are having to spend almost about 30% of the operational cost on utilities. So that's exactly what's going to happen. They will have to adjust the rates they charge the consumer or our clients in order to stay in business. Otherwise, the hotels will fold up.
And that was the president of the Ghana Hotels Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike there. Meanwhile, Professor Peter Korte has cautioned industry players to be measured in their agitations over tariff increases, though the director of ISE urged utility providers to adopt more efficient ways of operating to cut down wastage. He also cautioned industry players of dire consequences should utility companies be unable to generate enough revenue to sustain their operations.
Let's also be mindful, with industry, just compare the cost of using generators as compared to using the grid. You see a vast difference. If we do not pay the full cost, we continue to cry about the high cost, the need to subsidize and all that, the system will grind to a halt. The system cannot continue the way we are going. So we need to strike a balance. Yes, we cannot be increasing the tariffs all the time. If we also reduce waste, I believe we'll make some savings. But industry and even citizens should be ready to pay the value, the cost of production, at least at a very minimum, so that we can invest in the sector and be able to continue to enjoy tariffs. Otherwise, we'll be relying on generator.
And that was Professor Peter Korte, director of ISE. And just before we go, Ghana may lose investors in the coming weeks as the United States puts in measures to tighten their monetary policy. Economist with the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Lord Mensah, has been engaging 3 business on the matter and says the impact on emerging economies like Ghana will be minimal.
We are looking at investor community where they have alternatives. US is one of the markets that they may target. You have US lifting its policy rate, and obviously interest rate structures within the economy is going to go up. So they're doing that because of targeting the inflation that has gone up relatively for the past few months so high. And so we have two investors we're looking at. We have what we call the portfolio investors who invest directly to our market, dollar-denominated market. So once US raise their policy rate, they see that the premium that they're supposed to get for investing in our part of the world, especially Ghana, is not so rewarding. Will turn up to go and invest in the US market.
And that was Professor Lord Mensah, Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Ending it for the business segment. When you log on to 3news.com, there's more business. Uri Kwampofo is up next with sports.
Thank you very much, baby. Birthday girl.
What were you going to say?
Birthday. I was going to say baby girl.
Hey,
I realized that we're live on radio. So it wasn't me.
The baby girls are listening. The baby girls are could say hi.
Also, welcome to the sports here on Hot Edition 92.7. My name is Uri Kwampofo, and we'll be starting off with the Black Matches, and that's because Coach Ibrahim Tanko earlier today named a 29-man provisional squad list ahead of the Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations, which takes place in Morocco. Now, the team is set to head to Egypt next Monday for pre-tournament camping, and will spend 2 weeks in the North African country where they train and play friendlies. The biggest omission from the squad is Felix Afenajan, who misses out on the team, but there's also the inclusion of Kamaldeen Sulemana and Ransford Yeboah Konigsdorfer, both of which are part of Chris Hughton's Black Star squad to face Madagascar. But as the usual suspects in there for the Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations squad, it's just a provisional list. Kotanko has to take away 8 names ahead of the tournament because teams are expected to name a 21-man squad. The aim is for Ghana to go in there and try and book a place in Paris 2024, securing a place at the Olympic Games for the first time since 2004. But let's do some more football, this time head to Europe, because Liverpool have announced their first signing of the summer window after agreeing a long-term deal with former Brighton midfielder Alexis McAllister, who comes off the back of winning the World Cup. Now, he says that he had the option of choosing the number 8 jersey, but in the end went for the number 10.
Alexis, welcome to Liverpool FC. How does it feel?
Thank you very much. It feels amazing. It's a dream come true. It's amazing to be here. Can't wait to get started.
You've taken the number 10 shirt. Some great Liverpool players in the past have worn that shirt. You've worn it at your other clubs as well. Any particular meaning behind that number for you?
No, not really. I know how important is number 10 in football. I had the possibility to take the number 8 as well, which is a big number for this club because of Gerrard, of course. But I decided for number 10 because I used it a lot of time in Argentina, in Brighton. Under 23's national team as well, so it's a number that I really like, and that's why I chose it.
Well, that was McAllister, Liverpool's first signing of what should be a busy summer transfer window for Jurgen Klopp. Before we go, let's get updates from the ongoing French Open. The semi-finals is currently being played for the women's division. We already know one person who will be in the final, and that's Karolina Mukova. Now she beat Aryna Sabalenka. Quite a surprising result, beating her by 2-1, winning 7-6, 6-7, 7-5. Now is her first ever final for the Czech Republic female tennis player, and she's really excited to be in the final on Sunday.
Well, a lot has to do with your attitude.
Team and everyone, we work on this together, so it's our success.
And last question. The match was, you were winning 7-6, 2-love, then it turned again, and you haven't played that many big matches in big tournaments. How did you get used to that? Because that's complicated.
Just look around. It's pretty easy here with on this beautiful stadium with so many people watching, and I would repeat myself again. It goes just nice with everyone. You know, Thank you.
So that was Karolina Mukova, and she will be playing in her first ever French Open final. She awaits the winner of the match between Igor Swiatek and then Haddad Maia, which is currently ongoing. Swiatek winning the first set by 6-2. And the second set is currently being played with Haddad Maia leading, but Swiatek is also serving in there. We're bringing you more updates